should be live. There we go. So another week. We don't know who's jumping in with us this week. I will be posting the link imminently. But first, let's have everyone introduce themselves. And I'm Ammon Johns. I will hand it immediately over to my partner in crime, Bill.
Hey. Okay, so it's been an interesting week. We got the news recently that Matt Cutts is stepping down as the head of web spam at Google, and a lot of people seem to be wondering who's going to take his place. Google hasn't announced their official replacement. I guess they don't want somebody to have to be the mouthpiece that Matt was. So it just so happens this week that Google came out with a new patent that involves detecting and getting rid of spam. So I don't know if they're planning on replacing Matt with an algorithm, but it wouldn't surprise me if they tried.
It might not be a bad idea. You know, again, webmasters are already used to trying to argue with the algorithm. The difference is they're a lot worse at it than they are at arguing with Matt. So maybe that'll work.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah,
we'll see.
It's either that or they just have a self-driving car with the word "head of spam" on it. You know. Kristin.
Spam. Even better.
Kristin, say hello.
Hi. I'm really sad that I just did that because I really wanted to hear what you said, what you were saying. I was like, yeah, I was really interested. So I don't know, maybe like in a little bit you won't mind giving a recap or something. I don't know what. I just know you guys were laughing, and then like I popped in here, so yeah. I'm supposed to say. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we saw your connection drop, and we said quickly, everybody laughed, so that she'll wonder what we were saying while she wasn't there.
Oh, yeah. And then I thought I heard someone saying, I thought I heard Terry saying that, like, I was spam, like, maybe, or something like that. Maybe I got taken out because I was spam. Yeah. It's totally weird when you go through that vortex like that.
Yeah, you hate to miss anything. I know. Yeah,
that's why I don't sleep.
Terry.
Hey.
How's things for you this week?
Oh, you know, the same old reading and doing a little bit of planning for my next adventure, what I'm going to do next. Looking at starting kind of a community type deal again. Probably with another business here in Toronto. I'm still talking to them. But it would be more of a bigger audience than just Toronto. But I would be doing meetings here. I think what's kind of missing is a group that meets offline and online, where I plan to kind of use all the people that I've met over the years in the industry and put together the kind of panels I did with Dave and do workshops in that scenario to very small groups that, you know, and basically help small businesses learn to you know, take a few things in-house, or at least how to know how to hire somebody. Because I think if we could teach a small business anything about online marketing, it's at least to be able to spot the guys who know and those who don't. I think that alone would be doing a, you know, big thing. I think
that's great, but you know what? It's hard as hell to do. You know, there are people in our industry that are quite well known in our industry that when you actually dig in and look at their business, it's not necessarily doing as well as you would think for how long they've been in the industry. You know, there's people who turn up to the conferences, they've got the right company, they've got the great business cards, they've got the smart suit, and they're struggling as much as you know, the smallest company around. I think there is a difficulty in knowing, without being a master of SEO yourself, how else are you going to spot the bad from the good? I really haven't found a reliable signal apart from being able to, ask some questions and seeing where they fall down.
And that's what SEO pros tried to do back in the day, was at least show them, well, you can go and do these searches on the internet and find out more about companies than you realize you can. But what's always kind of made me think is the industry's kind of notion that these small businesses should be fending for themselves, and that we don't really give them good resources to go out and make these decisions. It's all buyer beware. Well, I don't think that's the best attitude for the industry if we want to really be encourage businesses to come to us. I think that's why there's such a trend to the in-house, is people just don't trust us anymore.
I think it's partly a standard build or buy decision. I can tell you, for 15 of my 20 years, I have been telling every larger company, eventually you are going to want to bring SEO in-house, because with an agency you are paying literally 10 times more for it than you would from in-house. And it is the thing, you could employ an SEO in-house for a week for the same price that an agency is giving you half a day of one SEO's time.
Yeah, I used to, when people said, how do I know? I said, ask the guy what kind of car he drives. If he's driving a fancy car, yeah, there's probably better deals out there.
Sometimes, yeah. Bill, what do you think about that one?
There's lots of telltale signs.
I think a lot of companies are interested in having their own in-house SEOs, and they don't necessarily want to give them just SEO to do. I see job listings where they're talking about directors of marketing, and they want people to have pay-per-click background knowledge and SEO knowledge, and they want them to have the ability to use Photoshop and HTML, develop pages. It's like they needed somebody to go with them and put together a list of actual realistic job requirements.
Yeah. It's kind of going back to what was the original term in the industry of, the web promoter, who knew enough to make banners and knew enough to build web pages and write articles and to do search submission and to understand what a directory editor was looking for in a submission, and could do a bit of social, and basically the whole package, who understands a bit of marketing and enough of all the online technologies to get by.
Right, but the same person is not going to be an expert at PPC and SEO.
No, which is where I think the outside consultants and agencies have their value. I think, you hire a specialist to bring your generalist up to date with what he needs to know for a specific campaign, or to help him with a specific campaign. But the overall strategy is something that the company needs to keep an eye on, and it's very difficult to go to a third party for strategy. I specialize in it, but it's very difficult with most companies to go to an outside agency, because they will all tell you that what you need most of is whatever they do.
Yeah.
Right.
Even if it's completely the wrong fit for your business.
That's why I also have told people in the past, don't get one company to do all the work. Try and figure out what they do well and give them that work. In fact, any jobs that I've worked on with people while I was with SEO pros, that's what I did. I even told people, bid on different parts of this job, because it's not all going to one person. I'm a strong believer in that.
Yeah. Yeah, Zara has just said, yeah, she agrees with you, Bill. Business concept of the SEO function and its value is blurred. And it reminds me of back in the day, and with what Terry was saying about how difficult it is to evaluate an SEO from the outside, especially if you're not an SEO yourself. I mean, that is something that used to come up every month on the Creator Site forums, isn't it? And it's never gone away.
Uh-huh. The number of people calling themselves SEO experts or gurus
And
who
ninjas.
were anything but.
Yeah.
Well, there's no barrier. There's no barrier to entry. Anybody can put up a shingle and say they do what we've been doing for 20 years. And
Right,
that's to me very annoying.
But a potential client can get on the phone with you and have a discussion and learn what it is you actually do. Get references from you and talk to other people, see what you've done for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of people search for their term and then go and try and find the SEO who got that ranking. I've seen that lots.
Uh-huh.
Even that is still assuming that rankings are the be all and end. Something that we've seen over the past 5 years is that being able to chase those big terms isn't always where the money is these days. There was a discussion the other day, and people saying, well, one of the things put forward was knowledge box. Getting this for a specific term is the new goal of SEO, isn't it? If you can, if cheap watches come up and you're in that knowledge box or something, if you can get the knowledge box to come up, isn't that the new goal? And I was no, anytime you're talking about the goal, you've probably got SEO wrong anyway. That comes back to what we've just been saying about generalists. There's so many things you can do with SEO that to limit yourself to just saying #1 rankings for this and not understanding that shopping process we've talked about in the past, that there are 50 different searches that come along before a decision is made. And a lot of people, they're all about competing for that decision phrase. Well, you can change where that is, and that's one of the reasons I've always said captology is part of what I do, because what I'm trying to do always in my campaigns is make the person want to come and deal with my company. I want their final search to be a brand search for the company I am representing. That's simple.
I've gotten phone calls from potential clients who were fixated on their competition to the point where they were clicking on their competition's website so often that they were boosting that competition's website in personalized search results. And I've had to stop people when they told me that what companies they were concerned about ranking for certain terms and said, look it up on Google. I look it up and the company they're worried about isn't there.
Yep.
And I'd say, okay, so now go up to the top right of your page and turn off the personalization. Click on this. Now try that search again. And they'd go, where'd they go?
Oh, I just knocked them down 18 places. That'll be $5,000, please.
Oh, well, Dave and I got a client one time where the guy said, oh, our rankings are fine. And me and Dave are looking and saying, no, they're not. And he said, here, I'll show you the reports. So he showed me the reports. Dave and I looked at them, and sure enough, we went, logged in, and did the same searches after we'd been on his website, got the same results. And we explained to the guy that, yeah, well, the guy's doing all his searches when he's logged into Google, so your place is always going to come up #1.
Right.
And I said, did it ever strike you odd that the guy was doing hundreds of queries to give you these results? He wasn't running a program? That didn't occur to you? Yeah.
More to the point, he wasn't using a completely separate IP address. I've seen agencies do this to themselves over time, where if they don't have a separate IP address that they're running, if they're doing ranking queries, they ruin their entire IP address for Google by personalized search. And I've seen it. I've seen, you know, small companies where they're running reports for just, you know, a handful of clients, but they're running it 100 queries per client to see where their rankings are. Well, that's 100 queries times 10 times 4 engines times, and of course it's ridiculous amounts. And of course they're not only getting the first page. If they're looking to see if you're in the top 30, they're doing a search and then they're doing the next page and the next page. And this really adds up fast, so fast. And yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of agencies say, oh yeah, well we quite often get that you may be doing automated searches box come up, you know, but we don't worry about that. We're used to that. We just confirm and get through and we're fine. It hasn't worried you that you're triggering this and therefore Google knows that this IP address is doing that. No. Yeah. Go on, Kristin, jump in, stop typing and start talking.
Okay. Yeah, I had to make sure with everyone that it was okay because I'm using the sidebar in the comments to make notes. I'm like, is this annoying any of you? Because if it is, I can stop. But they're all gentlemen. Yeah, I don't know. And this is totally from, you know, like I'm not in the industry yet, so I don't want to confuse anyone. I am not an SEO, although I would love to grow into that. But I am not one, so you cannot take anything that I say with as much authority as you can these other three gentlemen. But so, like, I guess what I put out there is questions. So I just thought that might be an important thing to establish. So I don't think that we haven't really talked about our roles here too much.
Well, I love the last thing you put in the sidebar. You know, why do people fight learning so much?
Yeah.
And there's two parts to it, aren't there? I mean, the first is we fight learning sometimes because we're comfortable with what we think we know, with our assumptions, and anything that challenges that is, well, it's opening us up to a lot of work, isn't it? Oh, now I have to learn new stuff, and I have to, you know, I've told hundreds of people this, and I've based all my stuff on that. I don't want to be wrong, so I'm refusing to be wrong.
Yeah. You
know, it's much easier to say you're wrong, and then I don't have to take back anything. I don't have to do any work. And do you know what? There's a little bit of bias in every single one of us. There are things we are attached to believing where we are going to be biased. And as Jeff Bond just put in the chat, overcoming customer bias is the first thing to do with every client. And do you know what? Overcoming our own bias is just as important. And one of the things I was saying is, don't worry so much about your bias against things. You know, somebody says this and you go, oh no, but worry massively about the things where you agree without checking. If this confirms something you believe and therefore you don't even go digging into it, that's where your bias is at its most dangerous.
Yeah, you were saying that when you were on with Vin last week during the Curious Marketer, and that one point just really has stuck with me, so I'm so happy that you came back to that today.
Yeah, and the other part is, you know, yeah, once we know what we knew was wrong, there's a certain mindset that, oh Christ, well, this ain't a whole, you know, it opens up a deep well of problems, because now how do I know that this isn't going to turn out to be false as well in another couple of years? You know, if I was taken in by one piece of false learning, how do I know that this is real learning and that I'm not doing the same thing again? Maybe this is something in a year's time is also going to be wrong.
You did it again during the part that I really wanted to hear what you were saying.
Yeah, Google's messing with you.
Damn you, Google. Oh goodness, I've gotten really cantankerous towards Google lately, and I was always that Google for President girl. Now I feel like I'm like in that that stage, that adolescent stage where starting to, I don't know, maybe the honeymoon has worn off a bit. But it's not very comfortable. Like when you have so much trust in an entity and then you start to realize there's holes, it's not very comfortable.
There's also part of this that comes into something we were saying last week, and Terry, Bill, we've been mentoring people and talking about SEO for enough years that I can tell you, I'm pretty sure everyone's going to nod here. When we meet somebody who is willing to learn, it is so rare, and we help that person so much, because the number of people who don't really want to learn, they want you to give them the exact steps, they want you to save them work, they don't want to learn to do it themselves. When we meet somebody who is genuinely interested in learning, we support them all the way. And that's where this industry is so open, and that's why you hear people in blogs and at conferences saying about how this industry has been generous to them and they want to pay back, or how everybody supports each other. And you get some people going, well, that's not my experience. Well, yeah, you're asking these people to do it for you instead of really actually being interested in this. I mean, Bill, you dig into those patents. In real life, 9 times out of 10, the people who say, oh, I love that you go into those patents, you know full well they haven't read it, they are not really interested in the patents. What is it like when you meet somebody who actually is and gets it, and that you can talk on a level with, and how does it make you feel when somebody actually wants to learn?
Sometimes it's frightening, especially if they're used to actually reading patents themselves, and they understand what those mean. And you do run into people like that every once in a while.
What about it is frightening?
The fact that somebody actually has that level of knowledge.
The same one that you have, though, right?
Yeah, except
that's
they may have actually gone to school. Were taught from professors.
That's another angle to think about
themselves, and have an understanding of how something's supposed to work.
Are you? The impression I have is that you're pretty much self-taught, right? I mean, pretty much everyone here, really, right?
I've got an English undergraduate degree and a legal degree. I don't have a computer science degree. I've learned a lot of stuff, but
wow.
But I think your legal degree is of huge advantage, because you were taught to look up history, look up case law, look up case studies to, okay, here's a problem, now find similar problems and find how they were resolved. Now, isn't that so much of what we do in SEO and marketing generally? I think that actually your legal training was a huge advantage to you at a time when there wasn't one for SEO or anything even close to it. Those have come along since, although I'm still dubious as to the value of any of the online marketing qualifications. But I think the legal training really helped you.
Yeah, it's so interesting how, I don't know, I've always had the most respect for people that are autodidactic, because it's their passion that is teaching them, and that's kind of what we're talking about today. Like that, just I've always had, like, that's where it's at. Like the most respect you have for someone is when it's just like passion driven, because it's like they're calling and they're acting upon it. So it's really beautiful.
It's one of those things. If the student is there, the mentor appears. And beware of somebody who's trying to drum up students, who's trying to generate students and trying to sell you a course, because do you know what? They may be a pretty good professional teacher, but they're not going to be a mentor. The mentor is somebody who looks for somebody who desires to learn and has that potential, because that desiring to learn is probably the most important skill in SEO in a lot of ways. You know, I've expressed in the past how important, in the chat with Vin, I said honesty is probably the most important thing for a marketer. And it's funny, it does. It slaps people in the face. But hang on, marketers are liars. Yeah, but everything is based on a deep understanding of the truth. They understand truths that you don't want them to know. That's why people really don't like marketers. They're aware of your own hypocrisy. They're aware of where you say one thing and buy something completely different. But
Yeah.
learning is also a desire for honesty. It's a way of saying, look, I'm not content with assumptions. I'm not content with general stuff. I want to know. I want to learn. I want the truth. And I think that is where it's an addictive quality. Terry, you must find that when somebody comes along who actually wants to know, who really wants the truth, that's somebody that you can spend hours talking with and explaining things, isn't it?
Have done that, yeah. And it's really easy. Towards the end, no, some people fight you all the way. They don't really. They want to take everything that they've read that didn't agree with you beforehand, and make you explain why that other guy is wrong. And my answer to that is, well, there are many ways to do this. I'm telling you the way I did it. I can't really explain what the other guy's doing, because results are all that really matters. And there are so many ways to get results. Like in the old days, everybody was running out to get links on other sites. Well, you know, I realized a long time ago that you could just put more pages on your own site and it does the same thing. Well, until they changed the algorithm again, and then you did have to go off-site. But you know where I'm coming from. That's why I like someone who doesn't really know that much, and they're coming to you, and they want to learn from you. I'll spend and have spent hours with people. Most of the people who were volunteers at SEO Pros, I was basically mentoring them, working with them to show them all these things. And while they were doing it, they were also reviewing websites and other people's work. So, you know, got to show them a lot of things that way.
Yeah, we got a comment from Fabrizio Ballerini. I hope I pronounced that right. Says, very spot on, guys. From small businesses to large businesses buying SEO, it's getting harder and harder. Too many misconceptions that make it difficult for clients to judge the right agency. And as Bill said, the job description can be very broad. And then the problem in getting the right help. He says it's dinner time, otherwise he'd love to join in the discussion. Well, hopefully Fabrizio will join us another week and have an early dinner or a late dinner.
Yeah.
So, Kristin, as you've been, trying to learn this stuff, how difficult is it to sort out the good sources from the bad? And, what can you pass on to people that you've noticed? How do you judge who to listen to and who not to listen to?
Well, I think that it's going to be a different answer for everyone, because people have different pictures of their results. Like I just put into our little chat, like you have to help your clients paint their picture of results, because results can look different from one person to the next. And that's part of like helping them understand what they're going to get from the effort that they put forward. So with that in mind, me personally, I like to think of any choice that we make in life like looking at two roses. They're both equally beautiful, or they both appeal to you in some way, but how do you make a choice? You just do. And that's kind of what I did, and I made my choice on you, Ammon, a long time ago. And so I have done, I feel like you're sort of my fundamentals course, and things that I've kind of gone, that have steered my decisions and my choices about who to listen to next, have really been based upon like what I've learned from you, first and foremost.
Yeah, with the Susie series, you know,
Yeah.
Carlos isn't with us again this week, but you know, it was, I think, for a lot of people, a very important way of looking at things that was a little bit different to most.
Yeah.
We had some wonderful guests on. We got to, you know, bring in people who have a specialist passion and interest in a particular thing week after week. And really explore those, and we covered a lot of ground. You know, we often went into areas where I'd suggest a topic, and even Carlos would look at me scratching his head and going, "What's that got to do with SEO?"
You want to talk to a neuroscientist? What?
Oh my goodness, Manny. Oh. Yeah. You had like the best guests of like every field. Like, it's just, I can't express like how much I loved that series and like everyone that took part in it, because I just felt like it was school time. That was my school time every week, where I just got to just take everything in and be able to trust so much that I was not going to be led astray by the people that you had on.
We were lucky. We had some great guests, and you know, we'd been around long enough that we knew some fascinating people in all kinds of aspects. You know, one of the things that's great about SEO is the huge variety of people you get to meet, the huge variety of businesses you get to look at and understand perspectives of, and of course, to do it right, the variety of their customers, whose viewpoint you have to understand and be able to see and look at. I've always enjoyed the sheer diverse range of perceptions I get to touch on as an SEO. It's always been a fascinating thing. But yeah, you know, if we're doing a show on writing, why wouldn't we want to get an author on, not just somebody who writes blogs? You know, and if we're going to be talking about how people respond to things, then yeah, of course, let's have a neuroscientist on as well as the fundamental grounding panel of the merry misfits of marketing, as Eric used to call us.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, overall, I really enjoyed that series, and I think there's a lot of that steered what we do in Bill and Ammons. You know, we don't mind who comes on, because whatever we discuss is going to have aspects that touch on every part of your life. You can't learn anything without it also having applications beyond that one thing. In my opinion, I think if you learn more about photography, it's going to make you a better webmaster and better SEO. I think if you talk about philosophy, it's going to make you make better marketing decisions. It's going to connect you with more people and open you up to wider perceptions. So I think, you know, all of it helps you be a more rounded person, and therefore a more rounded marketer, more rounded SEO.
In a way, this is oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Having an enthusiasm to learn, having a curiosity to strike out and try to find sources of information about topics really benefits you. You can look up a lot of stuff online that you couldn't years ago. I mean, there were times when you used to have to go to like libraries and find books about things. And now you can just go to your desktop computer and start typing things in a search box and say, how do I do this? How do I do that? And what do I do next? And what are all the parts? And what does this word mean? And what does that word mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
To go in depth on any one particular thing, like to follow it to the end of its strand that you can find, it can be a time-consuming process, but you learn a bunch from doing that.
Yeah.
And going down some of those, you know, rabbit holes that are at the sides where it's kind of off topic, but yeah, let's go down there. And like I say, you can't experience things that aren't going to eventually pay back. I try to not just, you know, talk about marketing, read about marketing, think about marketing, I try and have a very wide variety of interests because the people I'm trying to market to have, a range of interests that's as broad as humanity's range of interests. That's the point. And the more things I experience, the better I'm going to be able to connect with more people. Even if, I discover, okay, that's not for me. Fishing or golf aren't my things. Golf is just, a way to get in the way of a good walk.
I have to say, it's so nice to hear you say that. I just have to say.
Yeah, golf
Can we
would
add
be
tennis
fun
in
if
there?
you just stayed racing the golf carts. Racing golf carts, that's great. When you get in, look, I need a particular shape of stick to hit this ball. Get a job. Get a real hobby.
And yet, what do you think of polo?
I have never played polo. I don't think I could really afford the horse. But the mints are very nice.
That's just golf on horses. Isn't it?
I know. That's what I was thinking.
Well, I even call it high-speed, high-impact croquet on horseback.
Right. I was thinking croquet too. Yeah. Oh.
Like full contact golf with a horse. Yeah.
Follow that strand.
But it's one of those things. I have dealt with sites that sold equestrian saddles and things like that, and yeah, they needed to be knowledgeable about polo, so I needed to learn enough about it to be able to connect with that kind of market. And there are aspects of it. What excites me is passion, and polo may not be my passion, but I can understand the passion of people for whom it is. Just like computer games, there's a lot of people who don't play computer games, don't know into computer games, and certainly don't know that there are different genres and how passionate people can get about those. Well, there's some of those I do get. I do enjoy. I love strategy games. I have even done a couple of what they call MMO, massively multiplayer online games. They're fun, I'm not sure I'm ready for going full dress to the conventions yet in the cosplay. I think it gets a little bit over the top there. But do you know what? If they're doing it for fun, go for it. Why not? I think everybody should have quirky, fun hobbies. If you don't, you're missing out.
I think that John Keldon and Griswold Grimm, they're going to be putting together, or they're working on it right now. They're building it together, kind of like a step in between both of those. I think that's what it's going to wind up being. It's going to be really interactive, and yeah, it just made me think of that when you were talking about that. So
that's
watch out for it.
One of the things I've found from marketing is I've learned so much from marketing products, because to me, if I don't understand a product, I'm not going to try and sell it. To me, you're cheating your customer. If you don't really understand their business, you can't really market for them. So to me, that's the first thing when I meet a client. I want A, figure out how they make their money, B, understand their business. I only want to figure out how they make their money so I can see if I'm going to get paid down the way. It's how long are they going to be able to keep me on, kind of deal. But to me, that's I won't take a client that I'm not interested. I could never do a ball bearing site. Just doesn't do it for me. And believe me, I had one offered one time and just said, look, don't really get it.
Yeah. And how much did you really want to work for them? I bet it would have been nice, on some level, even if you didn't know them personally, it still would have been nice to be able to take on a client. It just didn't work. And it's oh. So that's sometimes I think where I struggle is knowing when to say, this is not working because I just am not interested in ships. No offense, Christopher House. But it was so hard to write about ships and stuff, and I was like, I love you and I adore you. I just can't write about ships.
Yeah,
But
I've done sailing. I've done people who were, they had a ship, a sailing ship, and they ran courses, which were team building exercises where they take you sailing, and everyone had to, do the ropes, do the rigging. Yeah, I can understand. Again, it's somebody's passion. That, do you know what? That's going to be a fun day out. It is going to be a way to experience something beyond the ordinary. Yeah, I can have just as much fun with that as I can with a team building site that's all about paintball games where they're shooting each other. Personally, I slightly prefer the paintball. There's nothing better at the end of a frustrating week than to go out and shoot people and not have to be arrested for it.
oh my goodness.
My idea of sport is taking a camera and going for long walks and finding things to take pictures of. I've found a local lagoon that's going to be developed, and they've got some great plans for development, but there's a nature center there now, and I want to go take pictures of it as it is now before it gets developed, and to have some of the pictures of some of the natural wildlife and plants that exist there now. I think that would be fun.
I love your kind of sport. That is about as holistic as you can get. I really like that.
Mm-hmm. I went to the botanical gardens here in San Diego a couple of weeks ago and took lots of pictures of foliage, plants, flowers, and so on. I want to do the same thing. I want to do the same thing with the zoo at some point in the near future, and get pictures of the pandas and lions and tigers and bears. Oh my, right.
That'll be neat. I think I left a comment on your flower because I think it was something like, now this is a cool collection.
Yeah, remember to take lots of pictures of the pandas, because SEOs the world over are always looking for new pictures of pandas. Some penguins too.
They have a live panda cam there, so you can watch them chewing on bamboo anytime you want, because that's what they spend a lot of their time doing, chewing on bamboo.
Yeah, that reminds me of that wonderful book about punctuation and grammar. Eat, Shoots and Leaves.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic book. If any of you haven't read it, it's great, but it shows you how misuse of a comma completely changes the meaning of a sentence.
And a book about punctuation becomes a bestseller.
Yeah.
Like that, right.
That's a world I can live in.
But isn't that exactly what we're coming back to, where passion about something, and if you can translate it and share it, makes almost anything interesting. For a different example, probably it isn't most people's thing, but there was another bestseller called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, which was a fantastic book.
Very much so. And the idea that riding around on a motorcycle, being free to the rest of the world, not being caged in, is fascinating. There's a writer named John McPhee who teaches at Princeton, who writes books about things like oranges. He's got a book called Oranges, where he talks about the growth of the orange industry in Florida, and how people started growing oranges and the struggles that the families faced fighting things like frost.
Does he compare them to apples? That's what we need to know.
Don't know that he does that, but
okay. You don't want to make it too easy for the critics. Oh, that guy, he compared apples to oranges. Dave has just. Yeah, never mind about the koalas and the Bruces, Dave. What you've got to watch out for, of course, is the drop bears. Yeah, those Australian drop bears, lethal, lethal.
What is a drop bear?
Well, it looks like a koala, but this is a search to do online. If you go and research Australian drop bears, you should find out all about them. Fearsome creatures.
Okay, now I'm worried because I know that when you say that like that, yeah, I'm just worried. What am I gonna buy?
Well, years ago, half of my ancestry is Scottish. Now, we used to have the stories, of course, about the haggises, the wild haggises, and you know, these are creatures that not everyone has seen. And you know, there's some things that people don't know about the haggises. You know, they are really, really specific. For a start, you've got left-hand and right-hand haggises, because the haggis has two legs shorter than the other two, because they spend all of their time living on hillsides. And the way to catch a haggis is to chase it the wrong way round a hill, because it will just fall over, because the long legs are on the wrong side. So that's how you catch haggis. And not everyone knew that kind of thing. Drop bears are similar to some of the haggis stories.
Oh my gosh, they're scary looking. People have to put Vegemite or toothpaste spread between their ears and their armpits.
Yeah.
Urinating on oneself, only speaking English in an Australian accent. Like, there's all sorts of different, like, things that people do just to keep them away.
Yeah.
To deter drop bear attacks.
Hey, John.
Hi, how you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good.
Hey.
I saw you last week, Kristin.
I know, you made me feel like a rock star there. Like, that was so cool being on there like that. Just, I had no idea who your guest was. Like, but you were kind of mysterious about it. Like, because you didn't say who it was. You're just like, we're going to have someone special. Or, I don't know, I can't remember how exactly you phrased it. But I was just like, well, I was talking to someone and I was like, well, I think I want to try to do this because I'm up anyways.
Wow, what time was it, your time?
Oh, it was like 2 o'clock. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Dedication.
I shouldn't have asked you questions then.
No, oh my gosh, are you kidding? Having like someone ask if I work for Google, that was just like I was floating on air for days. I think I still haven't come down.
Yeah, and then the Hangout keeps kicking you out today. I mean, Google's got no consistency, has it?
And still I say Google for president.
I was reading the other day, of course, there's been a lot made about AI and Elon Musk's stated or reported stated distrust for AI, and therefore the slight tension between himself and old friend Larry Page. And I must admit, I'm kind of between the two camps. Now, you know, Larry Page is a big believer in AI, and as far as I'm aware, he's one of the strongest proponents outside of Ray Kurzweil himself for the singularity, the idea of computer intelligence and human intelligence meeting a point where each can kind of work with the other. And that, I must admit, is such a worry for me. I mean, if we talk about the 1% now, what do you think it's going to be like after 10 generations where the richest never die and stay in charge and keep accumulating property and wealth and power? And that part terrifies the life out of me. I think there is a reason that we have a lifespan.
But there'll be more and more of them, right? I mean, if they keep producing kids and the kids are like in the same family, then, you know, it kind of dilutes it almost.
You would hope so, wouldn't you? But I don't think it does. I mean, this is the thing with Pareto principle and its more extreme 1%, you know, is that there is always this 80-20 divide, because that's the way power laws work. And the more people, the longer that 1% go, the more extreme that 1% will get. And people who used to be doing very well, thank you, will now be in the minority. And why is it the minority? Because some people have even more spending power, which is, pushing the level of what the rest of us have down. And it's something I do think about. I have these weird little thoughts every now and again. I mean, one of the things the other day was, I think they should change the tax system. And I came up with a thing I call MLC ratings. And what you do is you evaluate every company on 3 criteria and what percentage of its overall turnover this represents. The first is material, M for material and maintenance. Now, what are their materials costing? Because obviously, they're not making a huge profit if their materials are costing a lot. Also, their maintenance, if they're having to look after lots and lots of buildings, if they're having to keep up lots of, a big trucking fleet, things that haven't got a resale value. So it's not about, the amount they're spending on buying things that are then assets, but the maintenance value and the material value, that should always be factored in. Okay. The second part is L, and L is labour. And what you do is you take off the top 25% earners in a company and the bottom 25% earners of a company, and you evaluate them on what is the average wage for the middle 50%. How are they distributing wealth? Because if the employees are being paid well, then their income tax is already going into society. It's already benefiting people. And tax is supposed to be for that, is to build up community. And the final one is C, and this is community and charity. How much local labour do they use? Because it's more, if this is a company where, okay, it's paying good wages, but it's all abroad, that's not doing a lot locally, and you want to tax them more locally, because this is where their business is, and this is where they're getting the benefits of great high streets and good transportation and a good delivery network that the government is helping to fund. And
you're reminding me of the writer John Ruskin, who wrote a book called The Roots of Honor, where he talks about the purpose for people in different industries. And he said something along the lines of, if you don't know what to live for, you don't know what to die for.
Yep.
And he said about merchants, they're responsible for the wealth of industry and making sure that people get fair wages and can afford things and can purchase and have livelihoods, which is, it's a strong role for a merchant. But
it's one of those things. I believe in the term captains of industry, and I believe in business leaders. And a leader is somebody who is leading a group, a tribe, or a company, which means every single person in it. You are representing them all and making sure they're all better off. And unfortunately, we've got a lot of people who are bosses and are more interested in how well they're doing and using everybody else beneath them to get there instead of carrying the group forwards. And I think we need, for taxes, to start taxing more heavily companies where that is their objective, to make themselves rich, and taxing a lot more leniently companies that are already doing a lot to benefit the society they're in, because they're putting money into the economy through paying their employees well and having lots of them. The percentage of payroll to people in the location is already high. They are giving the economy itself a foundation, or they're putting money into into charitable causes in the region. Yeah, they should be charged a lot less. But the ones where too much is sucked off the top, that's where it needs to be a lot less profitable. And I think having taxation that reflects some of that is a way of starting to steer companies towards where you want them to be. They already jump through a lot of loopholes. Corporate accountants steer a lot of decisions by what's going to be most tax efficient for the company. How much you're paid, what's in bonuses and stuff like that, all takes into account what your tax burden is going to be on it. And I think if we shifted the tax code, it's one of the most efficient means of putting pressure on companies to be more socially responsible. And the ones that aren't, well, they're still being socially responsible because now they're paying more of the tax burden, which is providing healthcare and streets and crime prevention and all of that for the community they're doing business in. But you're not going to see it in a hurry because unfortunately a lot of the businesses are the ones paying for the political campaigns.
May be true, yeah.
I mean, it's also tricky because there are so many weird loopholes and possibilities where one company might be paying one charity, but actually indirectly it's owned by the same company. And I don't know. It's kind of crazy, and it's just something I've seen every now and then in Switzerland where some of these companies tend to end up, where you see really crazy stuff, and where you see the people who essentially on the paper say, well, I'm hardly earning any money, they're the ones in the big houses, and it's like, okay, well, where does this come from? It's like, well, I'm just watching over it, taking care of this house. I don't know. There's so many loopholes, especially I imagine internationally, where maybe like in the place where you actually live, the tax code is kind of reasonable, but actually they're paying all their taxes on some weird place where they're kind of happy to get this money and they don't really care if it's kind of comparable to other locations. They're already getting a lot more money than they're usually used to. So it's like both sides are happy, but the tax money isn't really flowing into the local community.
Yeah.
But
there's some type of offshore taxation going on. Some of the laws involving business are really odd. It's like a few years back when Sony, the entertainment company, sued Sony, the hardware manufacturer who was making cassette tapes for copyright issues. They were concerned that Sony making cassette tapes was going to hurt the value of their entertainment product. So they sued themselves. Okay.
Yeah, but I see the governments in the Europe suing Google. To me, that's just another form of taxation because they don't pay taxes. There's no other reason to hassle them. That's why they're not paying taxes, so they go after them like that. That's how governments work.
And while not legal, Google has, of course, managed to put punitive measures against itself in several areas. Hang on, Department X, you've overstepped the mark, and we're going to put you out of search for a while.
But
it happens when a company gets that big.
I can sue them for not looking to make those deals so that they don't pay tax, right? Because they're a public entity. Their job is to make money for the shareholders and provide a good service. So when I won't say evade taxes, when they use the tax system, well, that's what business does. I hold the governments who make the tax, who make the rules, responsible, not the people who just take the rules and use them. It helps Canadian companies because we're an alternative. Taxes. We have the lowest taxes, so.
It's one of those ones where it's a balance. There are people who overstep the bounds, which is why we have the courts. It's why we need laws, is because, sometimes, people will go too far, the individual, and not everything you can do to look after number one is right or acceptable or, what's going to happen in the long term. And the government is the whole idea of politics is that it's supposed to kind of be an overall guide, a little bit of leadership, and to apply pressure and you know, move the levers a bit to make one thing more. I'm not in favour of huge subsidies for things when, you know, government says, right, well, we want more people to be doing this, so we're going to subsidise it. I think a lot of the time that's not ideal. I think, you know, often you're better off with the other side of things where, well, maybe put a brake on other things for a little while. Tax something else a little bit heavier because, you know, that's putting more money into the economy to do good things with.
Can't do that anymore, though, because of all the free trade agreements.
It actually, if you do it as a flat rate tax, yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. All you have to do is kind of put a value-added thing. Yep, we are at time, so we're going to have to wrap up. Quick round from everyone to see what they're up to this week. Kicking off with Bill. Bill, what are you up to next week?
I'm going to write about how Google might fight spam in the absence of Matt Cutts. I told you we're going to replace them with an algorithm. We'll see how well that works.
After all, people already have John to misquote, don't they? So, you know, how are you enjoying that, John? Has it been good for you?
Ups and downs, yeah.
What are you up to this week that you can talk about?
Well, Google I/O is happening soon, so there's some last-minute things we're preparing for that.
Are you excited? Looking forward to that?
I'm excited.
I'm always excited when these things are over because then you can kind of relax a bit and see how how people pick up on the stuff and if they like it or not, or what we have to do from there.
Yeah. So there'll be 100 blog posts tomorrow. John hates Google I/O. He's always glad when it's over. Kristin, what are you up to this week? Unmute.
Okay. All of a sudden, Google took me down halftime. Oh, I don't know. Yes, I do. Okay. Tomorrow, I have the wonderful, lovely opportunity to join SEO Wise, Alexander Enrique Gonzalez and John Ellis, as part of the restorative justice spotlight. We're going to be taking a look at that, and I actually have inside information that they're going to be following this. They've signed up for 6 months, so we're going to be with this whole thing, and we're going to totally understand what it is that it's doing and why it's so significant.
Cool. Excellent. Terry, what are you up to this week?
Doing a little research on some e-commerce stuff. I'm going to try and figure out how many SERPs have questions about e-commerce and stuff like that. You know, so I can figure out how to spam them all and, you know, get all the traffic.
Oh, that's easy. You just ask John, and then misquote him with whatever you want to say. You know? That's how most people do it.
Well, I'm seeing more and more of it, so I'm kind of interested how many of those answer type SERPs there are.
One of the
reviews, all that stuff.
One of the big discussions I remember with John years back at Creator Site, before you joined Google actually, John, was when we were talking about the percentage of searches that were transactional, which Google at that time said was 10%. But of course, Google's version of transactional definition for that was much wider than what most people would think of, because it was anything where you were looking for interaction. So if you were looking for a download, if you were looking to ask questions on a forum, if you were looking to buy things, anything where you had to interact with it was transactional, and it was still only 10%. And if you remember, AOL had a big leak of their keyword output, and you'd kind of been looking through some of this, and we were discussing, you know, what does make a transactional query, because that was the first time I really talked about what I call anti-commercial searches, where people are looking to not spend money. You know, they know there's something they could buy for this, but they're still asking the question anyway, because let's face it, we don't want to spend money if we can help it. Which, believe me, anybody running a small business out there, this is important. Most people don't want to spend money. So just advertising, I have this for sale, is not a huge draw until they've worked out they can't get it for free somewhere. Helping them do it for free and realizing how hard work it is, and oh, did you know for just this amount we could do it all for you? That's where you start to get really appealing to people. But has that continued to be something that you've been very interested in, John, how the different kinds of searches break down? Because I imagine that you've had the chance to look at that kind of data a lot more.
I mean, that's always interesting. I think that's something that changes quite a bit also as people use voice queries more. If they search on their phone, it's very different from when you just type keyword, keyword, keyword. And basically, you're not really saying what you're looking for. You're just like a bunch of keywords, and hopefully these are good keywords. And nowadays, you pick up your phone and say, I want to buy a red bicycle. And I think that change is going to be really interesting. Also, with regards to SEO, like, does that mean you have to target I want to or not? Or is this essentially just the part that the search engines have to figure out? Well, this person wants a red bicycle. Here's a page about bicycles in general, and it has a red one on it. We'll show that.
Yeah. That's all we've got time for this week. I'm sure we'll be carrying on in the green room for a little while, but thank you very much for joining us, everyone, and we'll see you with the next one. Bye.